This is the Getto Free Press, and I'm about to interview a very distinguished individual here in Valdosta as far as civil rights go, as far as the Southern Christian Leadership Conference goes, and the People's Tribunal. Mr. Ransom, give me your name and tell me a brief history about yourself, just briefly.
Okay, I'm Paul Ransom, retired Air Force, almost 22 years in the Air Force, 20 years with the California Department of Corrections, where I taught automotive and furniture upholstery and other subjects.
Okay.
And then after retirement, I settled here in Valdosta, Georgia. And I'm the developer of the pictures that you see behind you. I've developed a process for changing two-dimensional images into a three-dimensional image. And the pictures that you see in the background, this is some of the things that I've done so far here in Valdosta. And the Vice President of the People's Tribunal.
Okay. And I see you wearing a hat that I cannot wear. Could you tell me something about that hat and the lettering that's on it?
Okay, I'm a Vietnam veteran. Well, before I was a Vietnam veteran, I was a Korean War veteran. During the Korean campaign, I was with the 308th Bomb Wing in Savannah, Georgia from 1951, I believe, or 1952. Years, in the early 50s. And I worked on the World War II B-29. Remember the plane that dropped the atom bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the B-29? I worked those.
Yes, sir.
Worked on what they call the Peacemaker, the B-36. This is a 10-engine bomber, 6 recip engines and 4 jets. I worked those for 3 years in Puerto Rico. Worked on a reciprocating engine tanker with the KC-97. And I retired a reciprocating engine specialist. Then after retirement, I went on to work for the California Department of Corrections. But, okay, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. Vietnam, I was also a Vietnam veteran, and in Vietnam I worked with the 33rd Air Rescue. As a matter of fact, the 33rd Air Rescue is the outfit that picked up one of the astronauts that, before the missiles or what do you call the vehicle? The vehicles that the astronauts had, they used to splash down, and they were picked up. They splashed down in the ocean. And the one that splashed down off the coast of Japan was picked up by the 33rd Air Rescue in Okinawa. Well, I was in that outfit. And after Okinawa, we came back to, I think, Utah. And from Utah to Sacramento, where I retired from the Air Force, and as in Sacramento, California. From there I went on to...
Okay, what year was that you retired?
1972.
1972. I had just went in 71. But anyway, Mr. Ransom, there is a situation going on here in Valdosta concerning the renaming of Forrest Street for President Barack Hussein Obama. And I think that you was at the beginning of this. So a few days ago I read in the Valdosta Daily Times wherein they gave their views on the status of the park and the fact that the president of the People's Tribunal said that he was not going out to get any other names. And of course we don't know where that's going. But after interviewing Reverend Rose, I got to thinking about you, because you have been very busy working with this in terms of going to the city mayor and Mr. Barber and those. And so what I wanted to do just to allow you to give an update that maybe the Valdosta Daily Times did not publish. So do you mind if I ask you a few questions and so you can educate the people in this community? And other places as well, because there are a lot of cities renaming streets in honor of the first black president, Barack Obama. So it's not like this is just something that's happening in Valdosta, because it's happening on state Hollywood, Florida. Black and whites came together and they did what needed to be done to get down some of those old Confederate names. So first question I would like to ask you is, we've had black and white people to address Valdosta City Council. Some of the blacks even said that Barack Obama is not from Valdosta, therefore we should not be renaming that because we have bigger fish to fry here in Valdosta. We had a white guy who stood up and said that the research needs to be done because Nathan Bedford Forrest was not a bad man, but he was revived or he repented himself or something along those lines. So because of that, those people, one black guy came up and he talked about he was educated and that he was a believer in history, and so if there was any information supporting the fact that Everett Forrest was actually, that street was named for the black man who did a lot here in town, that they need to research that. So being that as a prelude into what I'm about to ask you, as you see it, regardless of what they say at council meeting, what is the purpose of the name change as you see it?
Okay. The data source for my information was the Lowndes County Historical Society archives. Okay, there, with Forrest, General Nathan Bedford Forrest, he was a cotton planter, slave owner, slave trader, Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. And he was an uneducated man. He, except for backwoods skills in hunting and tracking, and he was a great cavalryman. But then he was also a guy that slaughtered almost 300 African-American Union troops that was surrendering to him. They surrendered and he just slaughtered those men. That was in Fort Pillow, Tennessee. He enlisted as a private. This General Forrest enlisted as a private, promoted to lieutenant colonel from private. He didn't go to corporal and buck sergeant, staff, tech master, lieutenant colonel and major and all that. Private lieutenant colonel. Well, he was a great soldier and all of that kind of stuff, and he was a guy that knew the woods and he knew how, and he was a leader of people. He knew how to get people together and do things like that, so that he was selected to form and train an army, and he did that, and he did a pretty good job of training the army, except what was bad about it was bad for black folks. Now, if you was on the other end of his rifle, then you was in bad shape. But for the people that was in his corner, I mean, he was an organizer, planner, and all of that good stuff. Yeah,
okay. Okay, so the purpose for the name change would be what? Short form.
Well, to name it after Barack Obama. Now, Barack Obama was the first African-American president. The street that the African-Americans live is a street that is more than 90% African-American, is named after Nathan Bedford Forrest, according to the archives.
And that's the man that you just explained.
Yeah. Now, I personally don't care about whether the street's named after Nathan Bedford Forrest, but he's somebody's hero, just not ours. So put the name Nathan Bedford Forrest or Forrest Street, whatever, where he belonged. Our hero, Barack Obama, the first African-American president. While he was president, he bailed out General Motors, Chrysler Corporation, saved them from bankruptcy. the nation's #1 terrorist, the guy responsible for the destruction of the 2 towers in New York, and just lost countless lives. The guy that was responsible for his capture and his destruction was Barack Obama. Barack Obama was 8 years as President of the United States, scandal-free, no woman scandal, no paying prostitutes, no. Well, he was just a good man, a good family man.
And he carried on many of the historical traditions of the other presidents that had preceded him. In other words, he didn't just set a new precedent. He pretty near, I don't mean go along to get along, but he maintained the respectable standard of that office. Am I right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now, when you all gathered the names, and I think you all needed 171 names, that's what they're saying now, but you all did go out and walk the streets to get the peoples who live on that street. Let's talk about the street a little bit, and let's deal with the parcel versus the residents and residents, because those are 3 things that came up later, but it's not in the ordinance in terms of now they're trying to enforce. So talk to us a little bit on that.
It's in the ordinance that was in effect when we were going through the name change.
Right.
Now, the ordinance that we worked on stated 60% of property owners, okay, if you own the property and or the resident. So we went from south to north on Forrest Street, counted properties. We came up with a number, and so I don't remember the number now, but let's just say if there was, I know it was more than 100, but let's use 100 for simplicity. If there's 100 houses, then that would mean we need 60 owners or residents. So we went to, and this was during the day while people was working, we went to every house, and we were able to get over 100 signatures.
114.
For the residents, which was way over 60%. After getting the 60% of the houses or the properties or the owners, they say owners or the people that live there. After getting the 60%, turn that in, they kind of start bending the rules to where what the new ordinance is saying. Well, whenever they come up with the new ordinance, I don't know if it's
proposed or because it hadn't been approved, because they had the first, second, so they tentatively came about to change it after the submission was made.
Right. And the way they're changing it is they want to, instead of property owners and resident, they're saying parcels, which mean an apartment complex with 50 apartments, 50 families of the apartment complex. Let's say it's got every apartment is occupied. So that means it's 50 families, 50 residents, but if you use parcels, which is what the new ordinance is going to say, then we could only use 1 person out of that entire 50 complex parcel. So when and if they change it to parcels, that's what it's going to say. But the ordinance that we worked on to say owner or the resident. We counted the resident, come up with a figure, went over that figure, turned it in, and it was rejected. You can't read it. Now, you can't read the president's handwriting either. There was They were duplicates, not true.
Okay, now, before I get to my next question, I'm just throwing this in because I would like for you to comment on this. Does the city have an attorney?
I'm sure, yeah.
Do you or do you not believe that it's kind of embarrassing, I mean even for a novice, to know that someone applied to have the name of that street changed under, it would have to be under the old ordinance and not the new one.
Right.
It seemed like to me that, and I haven't been to law school, but to force someone to abide by a law that has never been implemented, it seems to me.
And to me.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's talk about that a little bit. That's common sense to me.
Here's the rules that you got to follow.
Yeah.
They laid it out. Here's the ordinance. Follow these rules, turn these names in, and this is how you get the street or alley, whatever you want to change. This is how you get it done. We did that, and now that it's done, we turned it in, followed all of the steps in the procedure. Now they're trying to change the rules. They want to say parcels. Well, the new ordinance is going to say parcels. And the new ordinance is going to say that we have to pay for the sign, pay for the labor, pay for the engineering, whatever the city engineer, whatever he has to do. This is what the new ordinance is going to say. That's still not in effect. More than 6 months ago, we did what we had to do. None of this was in effect. So they're bringing in something that don't even exist yet to say these are the rules that you have to follow. And no, that's unfair.
There have been a lot of street naming here in the city of Valdosta. Have anybody did an open record search to find out how much money organizations or people had to pay just to get these other streets renamed?
Well,
because if not, there's a possibility that there may be some discrimination or something. And I'm just asking because I want an answer. And often the people here in Valdosta, they will listen to what is published in the South Georgia news media, which is not necessarily the truth, which we found out in the renaming of Barber Park. Go ahead, my brother.
and also the naming of Forrest Street. The Daily Times took out a full-page ad on the naming of Forrest Street, saying that it was named after a person named Forrest with one R, and a black man
Albert
Forrest in 1860. Now, who is going to believe that they named anything after anybody black in Georgia in 1860? Not long after this, they're lynching folks here in Valdosta for nothing. Man, they lynched a woman for standing up for her husband just to teach her a lesson.
Mary Turner.
Mary Turner, yeah, they gonna name something after black. That's unbelievable. Even though they claim it's the truth, and they can get black folks to say, "Oh yes, this is what happened." But my experience with the South and my experience with the history of the South tells me that they did not name a street after a black man in Georgia in 1860.
Okay. Now, looking at the historic archival record based on truth, why would they change the ordinance after all these many years or decades? I'm not going to say centuries, but why do you think they're changing it at this time?
Because
Why are they doing things differently? I'll put it like that, at this time.
they do not want to do it. Very simple. If they wanted to do it, they would do it. Very plain, very simple. You know, they do not want to change the name, and you know, I personally don't care about the street being named after Forrest, but not in my neighborhood. You know, put him over there where his people, he's their hero.
May I interject at this point, and you can comment about it? Is it not true that many years ago, Forrest Street, in fact, anything north of Highway 84 was all white? All white people stayed on the north side, just like in most cities. They put them on the south side and past the tracks. But as times changed, Forrest Street is now predominantly black. And so that is, you're saying that that's another reason why it should be named, because the people that used to be there, they don't take no pride. I mean, you know, they're not there anymore.
Right.
Okay, now, with all the controversy that's surrounding this request, a proposal to rename the street, how do you feel that this would impact or make the residents, the community, and children when they come from school, because they do tours, you know, or not only at City Hall, but they look at the streets as well. And we do know we have quite a few streets that's named after generals and army men of the Confederacy. So by changing this, what would this say to the community, including our children? What message would it send to them?
Okay, now, in speaking with Mark Barber, our city manager, the one thing I left there with that I'll remember this until the day I die: a person have a right to love where they live. Now, using this, changing the name of Forrest Street to Barack Obama Boulevard, that would give 90% plus of the resident on Forrest Street the opportunity to love where they live. If the people on Forrest Street knew that, for I'm sure some of the people know, and I know some of the people know because we told them, but if that was general information for all of the population, the people would not want the name of their street. Forrest. I mean, the folks the people that we talked to had no problem signing right now, because they want to love where they live.
All right, that's a good point. So, we have some intelligent black folk and other American citizens who asked the question. And you may pretty near come close to answering, but I still want to ask you, why fight this issue? Why don't you just move on? And they always tell you to move. Why don't you just move on? That goes, it's causing so much heartaches and stress, and somebody may go to the hospital before it's over. So why fight the issue?
Somebody's going to the hospital, or somebody's probably going to the cemetery, and you know. But the reason to fight is, if you don't fight, you will not win.
You will not.
If you won't win, and you got to fight in order to lose.
Dr. King said if a man hasn't found something he's willing to die for, he have 50 years, 50 live.
That's right. And, you know, winning or losing is only, according to Hubert Humphreys, is only the other half of participation. In order to win, you got to get out there and participate. If you want to lose, get out there and participate. You know. And stuff like this happens when good people do nothing, okay, then, you know, evil can triumph.
Yes, sir. That is so true. In closing, we have here in Valdosta a majority black city council. Quitman, Georgia, still have for the first time in history as far as city government, a black majority. And Mayor Nancy Dennett was one of the Quitman 10 plus 2. We won't get into that, but they brought her up on voter fraud charge along with 12 other outstanding black people. Now she controls the city. now that they are majority, they have made difference. They stepped up to the plate, and they made some changes that everybody can see. Some people don't like it. So I'm throwing that out because this is my final question. Considering the fact that here in Valdosta we have a black majority, Sonny Vickers, to be exact, Sandra Tooley, Eric Howard, as well as Councilman Cody.
Yes.
And that's the majority. So my question and because we have a mayor who have served at least, served a couple of terms. So give me your opinion, considering everything that has gone down concerning this street renaming. How do you feel about these elected officials?
Okay. Now, I feel if they want to do it, they do it. But now, the thing that bothers me, if we follow the rules of this new charter that's not even in effect yet, but we're going to be held to those standards, okay, we can do, and this was promised by the city manager. We had several meetings with him, and the city managers said this: even after following the instructions of this new charter, we've already followed the old one, but now change direction, follow the instructions of the new one, letter for letter, and come up with more than you need like we did the last time, the city council can still reject our petition. They can still say, no, you can get 100%, but if those 7 or 8 people on the city council decide I don't want to do it, they can still say no and not do it.
Okay, Mr. Ransom, I want to thank you for your input here. I wish we had more people in the community that would step up and speak on this issue. But I thank God for you for doing what you do. Thank you, and thank you for your military
You're
service.
welcome. Okay, you got a point.
Okay, I have a friend of mine, Charles Judge, here in the office, and he was sitting while I was interviewing Mr. Ransom, and he has some comments about what he heard. And so, would you tell us, expound on what you was relaying to us?
Yeah, I was just hearing about them changing the rules, and after a process has already started, well, you know, in legal procedures, if you go forward with a case and something happens at a certain time, and it's already along in its process, it's generally not permitted to go back and change the rules retrospectively to fit some agenda that you may want to promote or quell, for that matter. And as I told him, this has nothing to do with feelings, but in my opinion, why not name Inner Perimeter Road Barack Obama Boulevard? Put him out there on Front Street, and anybody who complains, then that way they calling themselves out, because he just said it was a federal highway. He was our president, and that's putting him up at the top of the list instead of behind the tracks, in my opinion. And I don't mean to offend nobody. If that comes across wrong, I'm sorry. That is not the way I mean it. I just think what's fair, the man achieved the highest position of power in the world, and we could use some of our main streets to promote that. But I can also understand the other point. If folks live here and they're tired of hearing Nathan Bedford Forrest, and something else I heard, I think it might have been on Glenn Beck or one of the right-wing radio stations, but they said that guy was not only just a grand wizard, he was one of the starters of the
founders,
one of the founders of the Ku Klux Klan. And that just might be something we all want to take in consideration, because my whole thing is about peace between the races, not division. But we've got to give each other our due respect. And that man achieved, whether any folks like it or not, that man achieved being the President of the United States, and he deserves an honor on a high level like that, whether you agree with his politics or not. That's just...
And Mr. Judge, he's getting that recognition across the nation. Other cities, counties, and states are doing it, and it's not just black people; it's black and white people. I want that mentioned because often black people think all white people are on the wrong side of history and the wrong side of God, but all of them are not. So I said that to say this because I got this ultimate question for you: is that if across this nation, Hollywood, Florida, had several names that was in honor of Confederates, and they got rid of all of them, from what I've read and studied, and they still are honoring the Confederate people. I think they're doing it like in the museum. So, you being a person who speaks out on the issues, why do you think the people here in Valdosta and elected officials, including the people who spoke negatively at these meetings, and some of them was black, how do you think that people outside of Valdosta and Lowndes County can possibly get it right or understand it, but the people here in Valdosta cannot get it right? And what do you think of the people here in Valdosta mentality among the people?
Okay, first off, I think this is a wonderful community, and pretty much left alone, we all get along fine. I do think there's an element of what I call a redneck mafia here that kind of controls everything and makes things happen behind the scenes. And if you go up trying to cross them, you wind up being down there at the jailhouse and having beat to death and that kind of stuff. I hate to be so blunt, but this is, after living here for years, I've seen this kind of stuff. And I am not trying to cause trouble. All I want to see is peace and unity between the races, and for us to love each other and go forward with what's right in God's eyes. And we've all got to be treated like, with the respect of our fellow human being, despite what side of the political parties you fall on. There should be some way we can communicate and find common ground that has that rings true of what's right. That's the best way I can.
Thank you very much, Mr. Judge. Mr. Ransom, I come back to you for a special reason. People in America call you a black man. You and myself today have heard from a white man. What's your response to what this young man said about the whole situation? I want you to very briefly state, what do you think about his comment? Because he didn't have to say anything. He was just sitting here.
Well, the truth is the light, and you might as well let it shine. The fact is, if you just look around, you look at the pictures behind you, these are people in the black struggle. If you notice, look at all of the white people that fought for this struggle. People that were lynched during the civil rights movement. There's a picture of a young man right there. I don't remember his name now. But these are people that were lynched, snatched off of buses. The buses set on fire in Alabama and Mississippi. There's these two young men right here and the ones on the sidewall over there. Fought for black folks' rights. They fought for right. It wasn't about color. It was about right and wrong. It was about fair and just. Not color, fair, justice. And this is just a few. I mean, there's people. These are people that became popular. There's people that we wouldn't recognize their name if we saw it in letters as big as a boxcar. But these people make contributions in this struggle for black folks, and these folks were white. But it wasn't about black, it was about truth, and it was about justice.
Not only that, Mr. Ransom, but when you think about it, you take Lester Maddox, Governor Wallace, Bull Connors, and others who history proved to be on the wrong side of history. even some of their own children and grandchildren, and I've seen this on TV, condemn them for being on the wrong side of history. So, if people are not careful, their own children will try their best to correct them before the books are written, and their name would be no more than footnotes at the bottom of the page. What say you?
Wrong side of history, right side of politics. I had an experience.
All right.
I used to play for a church. I played organ and piano for a church in Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, Little Rock is the capital. The pastor of the church where I played was the guy that shined shoes at the Capitol. So he knew senators, the governor, lieutenant governor. He knew these people personally because he worked right there in the Capitol. We went on a tour of the Capitol, and the governor just happened to be there. He asked one of the little girls in the choir, "Can you come here, honey? You sit right here. Let her sit in his seat." He said, "Now, how does it feel to be sitting in the highest seat in the state?" And just laughed. And then she was kind of bashful, she was a little young teen, about 13 to 14 years old. She didn't know how to answer the question. But here's a guy, when they was trying to integrate the high school there, he stood up there and blocked the door to keep black people out. Now, he didn't move. They would crawl between his legs and went around him, you know. Now, if he'd been trying to stop him, he could have kicked and slapped and, you know, but he's standing there like this, and the camera see him going, and he's standing there trying, now he's blocking the way and not doing anything, but just standing there like a statue. And the kids just, okay. Politics. His cook, the people that fix his food in his home every day, wash his clothes, babysit his children. Black folks. They hate the race, but they love the people.
Yes. From listening to what you just said there, have you seen a commercial on TV wherein the Farmers Insurance Company, I think they said, we've seen a thing or two. At your age, and you are at least 70 years old, I guess you could use what Farmers Insurance says, that we've seen a thing or two. All right, my beautiful brother. You take care of yourself, brother Judge. Thank you for your input. I didn't know you was gonna contribute to this video, but thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, and once again, this is the Get To Free Press, George Boss Ryan. We report what others ignore. Why do I do it? Somebody got to do it. We go.